Welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your questions 7 days a week. Let's go ahead and jump into the questions. Next, CJ.
First question today is from Paul Wahus in Austin, Texas. Paul says, my Synology NAS is great for storing a few terabytes of photos, but when it comes to finding, retrieving, editing, and saving them, it's not that great. What production software would aid in this process?
Go, TJ.
I have been storing and cataloging photos for more than 20 years now. I started off with a piece of software called iView Pro, and then it got moved to Media Pro, and then that got taken over by another company. But basically, what I'm going to recommend is use a separate piece of software for cataloging. What I have settled on now is a product called Neo Finder, Neo Finder, and that allows me to catalog all of the photos by keywords. What you do is you kind of suck all of the photos into the software by folder, and then you go through and you put keywords. Is it the month, the year? What's the subject? Is it a landscape? Is it a wildlife? Is it a portrait that you're doing? Allows you to catalog, and then you can, using that catalog software, you can sort your catalog and say, okay, go get me my portrait photos, go get me my family photos, go get me the wildlife pictures, whatever you want to do. And having had to switch over my software at the beginning of this year, I looked at every possible thing out there, bought a bunch of stuff, most of which was garbage, and settled on Neo Finder as my cataloging software of choice. And I've been moving that forward, and I have over 250,000 pictures in it.
Go ahead, CJ.
I have a little bit more of a off-the-shelf idea for this, and I, like you, Paul, have all my photos stored on a Synology, but I find the Synology photos just doesn't quite do it for me. So what I really like is I'll use Adobe Lightroom to have all the pictures imported and allows me to edit them and get around. What I enjoy about Lightroom is that when you might have to be using Lightroom Classic in order to do this, but it'll actually organize all of your photos just into folders by date. So it's not all obscured behind a bunch of, proprietary editing folders or packages so that you can't actually see your photos. So the originals are always there. The trouble is you need the Adobe Lightroom to actually run your edits. But I probably don't have as many scars as TJ from transitioning, although I feel like I still am not over Apple killing Aperture. Like
none of us have recovered. Everything was in there and they took it away.
It just disappeared. Yeah. But the other thing that I am hopefully that I'm anticipating with Lightroom is Adobe's made a lot of investment into their generative fill and their generative removes with Photoshop. I'm hoping that they can also bring in AI features to catalog. So they've already done a little bit of that where, like Apple, you can search for, I need all the pictures of the dog and all the pictures of wine and all the pictures of the Christmas tree. I feel like that's only going to get better as the neural network engines start to help us catalog and find things.
Go ahead, Courtney.
I'm pretty simplistic. I used Google Photos, and I do that because it's cross-platform, and it automatically copies the photos from my Android phone into Google Photos, and it organizes. And now that they've added Gemini, Cricket, to it, it auto-recognizes people's faces and can, once you identify a person that's in a photograph, it can find all the photographs that person appears in, and you just have to point it to all the drives that you want to catalog, and hopefully it would find that NAS with your terabytes of photos in there and organize them by date or by person or by any way you want to organize them. And it can search it. It builds an index that is pretty fast at finding stuff. So, as far as editing, I'm not sure whether they have a good editor that lets you remove stuff from the background like Lightroom or any of the other great photo editors that are out there. But as far as organization goes and keeping things accessible across multiple devices, it's pretty handy.
Good. TJ?
Yeah, just to follow up, I do use Lightroom to process my photos and whatnot. If you use Lightroom, you need to have your catalog on a local drive, and then you can store all of your photos on a NAS like I do, and I have untold terabytes. I have no idea how many I have even anymore. But keeping your catalog a really fast drive is key to making Lightroom perform well.
Next question.
Gabriela Echesa Mestiera from Sault Ste. Marie says, via the QR code, where are photos stored on your iPhone? With the new iPhone, can you connect a USB drive and download photos?
TJ? It's hard. There's a CJ and a TJ today, and they're often answering the same questions. And so it's like, is that me? Is that, yeah. So anyway, go ahead, TJ. I shouldn't put you, given that you're asking the questions, I shouldn't put you first to answer them. Anyway, go ahead.
And that's all. Yes, you can actually connect your iPhone to your computer and download your photos. I do that actually periodically. I'll do that maybe every couple of months or so. If you have a Mac, there's a program called Camera Capture that I use to pull all the photos that I've taken on my iPhone, store them again. I store those on my NAS, and that way I have a backup of all of the photos I've taken, and then I can pull those into Lightroom if I want to categorize them. And the good thing about the Capture app on the Mac is it will remember what photos it has already imported. So when you connect it again, it'll bring up all that whole list of photos, and everyone that's already been imported will light up with a little green circle, so you don't need to re-import that one again.
Go ahead, CJ.
And if you're without your computer, you can hook it up to a USB drive, but when you're just looking in the Files app, it's not like there's a Photos folder on that drive where you can select the photos and drag them over to the USB drive. What you're going to need to do is go into the Photos app, select all of the photos that you would like to move over to the drive. So it's not a super elegant way to do it, but you'd probably have to hit select in the upper right, and then if you start to drag your finger over the photos, it will select all of the photos as you're dragging. And then when you hit the share button, you'll have to hit save to files. And then that'll invoke the little thing to come up where you can actually say, okay, save this to the external drive. It's not, like I said, not super elegant, but that would be the way that you have to do it.
Next question.
Our next question is from David Brady in New York, and he says, the National Organization of My House of Worship is looking at ways to engage all locations nationwide. I was thinking Discord might be a way. Where can we learn more about its use and management?
I guess you can ask questions here. I don't think we learned a lot other than we turned it on and started doing things with it. I think that, we knew a little bit, but I will say that we just kind of found our way there. And I find that almost every Discord server is a little different because everyone has different opinions about how they want to run it. Ours kind of grew into something that has many, many little conversations going on. And it's one of those things, like I go back and forth, like, because I go to other forums that have none of that. What I will say is the ones that don't have a lot of specific conversations have a lot less flow. Like they just have a lot less people talking because, you get into threads where there's different threads going on at the same time. And I don't see it as active. The ones that have, ours is probably way on the far end of lots of conversations. But there's some in the middle that do pretty well where they have, if you think of it as like an online, the Pixel Core worked on vBulletin, so but we would have used Discord today. I guess I don't know who I would go to. Typically, when I'm trying to figure something out, I go to YouTube and I just type in, I would type in probably setting up Discord or how to run a Discord or whatever, and watch some of those things. But definitely know that there's no right way to do it. It's just a matter of figuring out how you want it to look. To make that happen. So, but ask questions here. There's some people here that are administering some Discord. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of technical things. I will say that one of the things I think that it was successful with ours, and some people bristle at it, is real names and suggesting people do locations. And that it changes the tenor. I definitely have found online it changes the tenor of the conversation. I do wish more people would put their exact location in, not their exact location, but their city. We have a handful of people that don't do that, and oftentimes I'm trying to find out, hey, can I hire someone to go here? And people's names, they're there without their location, and it's unfortunate because it's unfortunate for them and me. So anyway, so that, I think that the location is so that we can find each other. Hey, I'm looking for somebody in Dallas, or I'm looking for somebody in Oklahoma. That's a big use there. So next question.
Next question is from Callum McCorkle in Bournemouth, Leeds. And Callum asks, Alex has talked a lot about coffee, and there have been 2 coffee video challenges so far. When are we going to see Alex's own masterclass video on all the different coffees he likes to make? Also, why not tea for people who want to drink a proper hot tea?
Go ahead, CJ.
I would love to contribute to the proper hot tea.
He said he didn't say proper. By the way, he didn't say proper hot tea. He said proper hot drink. I think that's a little bit of a coffee put down.
Oh, okay.
I think he was like, it's fine for you guys to
I think I had a little Freudian diplomacy came in there at the end. I would love to contribute to the tea conversation because it is it has such a rich history, and there's so much variety as you go to the tea culture in Asia versus the tea culture in the British Empire and the former British countries like you see in Australia. I for a while was making tea in a traditional style with a tea table and with actually pouring, bathing all the glasses in hot water and steeping it for so many seconds for so many grams. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to make this really, really automated, and I got this Breville tea maker where you put the loose leaf tea into a little basket and then you drop it down for the perfect amount of seconds and it comes back. And then I told some of my friends in Taiwan about it, and they said, well, you've just ruined it. You've taken all of what made it special away and just Americanized it and mechanized it. It's all about taking a break.
It's the doingness of it.
It's the making of it. Yes.
I have to say, for years, our office manager, Pixelcore, would bring me. I had it was a chrome service or stainless steel service, and would bring me at 4:00 every day. I'd have tea. It was tea time, and people would and we'd all stop. We'd be talking, and suddenly the tea would come down, and we'd all sit there and talk and have tea. And sometimes we had little biscuits that were brought out, and it's such a nice I have to say, it was a great thing to do at 4:00. It was just, there was something about we're still got a couple more hours to go, but we're all a little okay, and it was just this nice little 4:00 stop. I really I definitely enjoyed it, but I would love to do. I think I've thought about it a lot that we should go back to doing more challenges. So probably won't happen right at the top of the year, but pretty soon we're going to start doing these again. I think the coffee challenge would be the perfect one to bring back up again, because a lot of us make it. But I think what we should do is do a coffee challenge and then do a tea challenge. I think we actually did. I thought we did a tea challenge, but maybe we didn't. So coffee challenge and a tea challenge, I think, are good. And the reason that they're good for making how-to videos is because so many of us do one or the other. So there's so many of our members that do either coffee or tea that we all have some way that we do it. And it's not a matter of showing the right way to do it. It's that we all know how we do it. And then it allows us to have what we did with some of the challenges. And one of the great things when we did it in Pixelcore too, we did these challenges where we would just send people out to do something. And there were 2 things about it. One is that we got to learn how to do something with video and the mechanics of it. We didn't have to figure out what the content would be. We just had to figure out the mechanics of it. And then 2, you got to know people. We had ones where people did spherical HDRs of their backyard, and we got to see everybody's backyard. It was just fascinating. It was just and people loved it. And then we did one about go out and shoot a 2-minute video about your favorite place. And some people picked the farmer's market, and some people picked a park, and some people picked, this little shop that they like to go to. And they literally shot a little video about it. And the learning of it, and people ask questions, the learning of making the video was one part of it. But learning more about each other was as at least as important as the mechanics, and I think that we should do more of that, and we'll work on that as we go into the spring. Go ahead, Bill.
I remember the first time I heard about Japanese tea ceremonies, and it reminded me, it just clicked in that it's not about the tea sometimes. It's not about the coffee sometimes. It's about the process and the fact that you're taking a break and doing that. One of the things I started when I was doing a lot of voiceover work was somebody in one of the news groups for voiceover people recommended this stuff called throat coat, which was designed to do that. It's the first time I ever drank something consistently every time I sat down to do a voiceover that was not coffee and was not tea. And at first I went, okay, this is weird. It's kind of a licorice-based natural thing. But the more I did it, the more I associated that with the mental state of doing VO. And it was really interesting. The taste of the tea actually put me in a different mental circumstance. So yeah. I really do understand that this is a cultural thing. It's an individual thing. It is a mental kind of just a way of getting yourself to a place that sometimes you can't get to any other way. And I that's charming. So I'm in as far as that. I will bring my tea bags of throat coat and talk about them for hours.
There you go. Yeah, good, Courtney.
I'm with Bill there. I think we ought to have a Postum challenge. And those of you who are old enough to remember Postum. It was a grain-based coffee alternative beverage for people of a certain age. I don't know if it was made by the people at Post Cereals to get rid of their excess grain, and they made it.
How can we find yet another way to use this?
To get rid of the stuff we normally throw away. Let's sell it as a coffee alternative.
That's how we ended up with chicken wings.
Bosco takes me back to all those Sky King episodes from the 50s where they used to always advertise that chocolate drink from Bosco Bear.
Wasn't Ogilvy? Wasn't that another weird thing that we ate?
Ovaltine.
Ovaltine. Oh, God,
Ogilvy was an advertising agency.
They probably advertised for Ogilvy. They were like, let's call it Ogilvy. Yeah, exactly. Or Ovaltine.
Get on the Ovaltine.
Yeah. CJ.
Ovaltine.
If you've never had a tremendous amount of green tea or oolong tea, it has considerably less caffeine than coffee. So you could drink a lot of tea and not even get anywhere near the caffeine content of coffee. However, if you drink tea, have a tea session that's multiple hours where you drink a lot of little cups of tea, you do get into a different state of mind. It's not a hyper like caffeine, but it's a very oh my goodness, am I aware?
Wait, we've gone. This is like a Sunday discussion now.
That's right.
Real quick, and then we'll move on.
Far afield. I think hot Dr. Pepper needs to come back.
Yeah, no. Good, Mark.
So to continue on the Sunday theme, Ogilvy is a park in Wheeling, West Virginia that's somehow tied to the family that owned the Edmund Fitzgerald. So there you go, Ogilvy.
Really? There you go.
Next question.
Next question is from Abe Barrera in Flowery Branch. And Abe asks, is there a career or position for those that know Previs, thinking of buying it since it's on sale and learning? It's from the QR code.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Sorry. I don't know about looking to start a career in Previs with AI video getting better and better with each generation. I think the days of Previs will be numbered. Previs Pro is a good place. PrevisPro.com/learn is a good place to get training videos on Previs, the software Previs or Previs. But if you want to go there, but I just think that AI is getting so much better at doing things like Previs with fixed characters and furnishing a room without having to create individual pieces, grab individual pieces of furniture and arrange them, and et cetera. But, maybe there'll be a place for it in the future. We don't know how the AI is going to shake out, but I'd be nervous about starting a career right now in Previs.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's the problem with AI right now is it still has kind of a crazy Uncle Willie kind of a workflow, which is that you just have this it doesn't really, it kind of gets close, and then the closer you get, the further you get away from what you're trying to get. And so I think that in Previs, a lot of times, not always, but in a lot of times when I worked in Previs, as you know, I worked on a pretty big movie with Previs very early on in the world of Previs, and a lot of it is very specific. Move this over 3 inches, swing this past this, go a little bit faster. I think that what we might see is that the pre-visualization for movies gets a lot more specific. So, and David Fincher was known for that. He got to a point where he was building for Escape Room. Is it called Escape Room? I'm pretty sure. He built a jib, or technocrane that was within inches of, and when they swung it in, when they brought the technocrane in, the crew said, "You can't put the technocrane in." He goes, "Oh yeah, you can." And he goes, "It's going to hit the wall." No, it's not. And it literally swung and was within like 3 inches of the wall. But that's exactly because he had built everything to spec. And so I think that our ability to build, like I'm using the scanner that I, the BLK 360. I go in, if I'm going to do something, anything interesting in a room, I just go in and scan it. We turn it into a SketchUp model that's within an inch. We don't try to go into we don't try to be more accurate than plus or minus an inch, but we get pretty close to it. And then we can make a whole bunch of plans, and you can build shots and design shots and so on and so forth that are there. And so I don't think that Previs will, I don't know about the app Previs or the tool Previs, but I'm talking about just Previs, is that pre-visualization, I think, is only going to get more specific. I don't think it's going to go away because it buys you so much. I mean, I think Rick McCallum for Star Wars estimated that we saved $50 million on just because of Previs. Because the pod race, when we did it in Previs, was not Previs the app, but pre-visualization, was about 22 minutes long. And I think it was down to 8 or 9 minutes in the edit by the time they went and shot it. So there was 15 minutes of content that just was never created for that scene, but what made it work was that we had kind of a Saturday morning cartoon version of it. Nowadays, you can get to a point where with AI and with a team, we're going to get to a place where we could get to a point where it looks 80% of the film, and it 80, 90% of the film, and that allows the director to think about it before there's a huge crew out there. And I don't think it's going to replace, and I think that Previs is going to become more important than it ever has been before, because we can watch a movie where it's close, but not the final thing. Because I think that one of the hardest things to replace is the actors. I know actors are very worried about this, but we look at Polar Express and we understand how hard that is. So replacing actors, I mean, it's hard to find good human actors, let alone replace them with CG actors and then replace them with AI. I think that like Gollum was really amazing, but I don't think I'd want to watch a whole movie of that. Like, and we find that, and so I think that you're still going to need to shoot these things, and we find that when there's a lot of green screen, it doesn't look as good, and it doesn't stand up to big screens as well, and people stop coming to the movies and that kind of thing. So I think that there's still a place where we're going to shoot these films, but I think the previs is going to become super important because it allows us to make a bunch of decisions. And what happens is when you can make those decisions quickly, and you make them without the crew there, you can get to a point where you actually have more fluidity. I know that some directors, what they can do is they can get the shots quicker. If the mistake they make is they shorten the number of shoot days because they got more efficient. What you want to do is have the same number of shoot days, and then you shoot what you know you need for the movie, and then you talk to everybody. Go, what do you guys think? And then the actors play a little bit, and then the other people play a little bit, and then they get something better. I know that there was just a interview with Minnie Driver that she talked about the fact that Grosse Pointe Blank, she said the script was horrible. Like, it was just a horrible script. And so they went to the director and said, hey, can we just ad lib, this whole thing and just improvise? And they improvised she said almost the whole film is improvised. Like, they knew what they had to communicate, but almost everything was all there. Just the actors are just making stuff up. That's a magic that you don't get when you are too, and I think this is the problem, too much previs and too much planning. It all comes from one person, the director, and you're not taking into account that there's great DPs and great people, great actors who can think through things with you and then that expands your what you can do. A lot of times when I'm on a set shooting something, I'm mostly trying to hire people that I respect, that they know their field better than I do. And I mostly spend my time going, what do you think? What do you think we should do here? And I just keep on asking questions. I have to make a decision at some point, but most of it's just empowering the people around me to do it. And that's what you lose from Previs. But what you gain from it is really understanding and being able to get rid of a lot of things that you would have done otherwise. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
And it's important to note that there's like two different applications of Previs. There's the one used for visual effects that Alex was talking about, where the stuff that's going to end up in the film or the movie or the commercial doesn't exist. It's being generated in visual effects. So you have to give the actors something to look at to know where the monster is going to be, what it's going to look like, how they're going to interact with it, and all that kind of information. But there are a lot of Previs applications out there that are used as a tool for like commercial production, where it's all live actors in real scenes and there's no CGI, where you lay out the scene, you load in the architecture of the set or the location with accurate renderings, and you position your stand-in characters where you want to shoot them and where you want to block them. And so it's just used for blocking and then to generate storyboards so that everybody in the crew is on board with what the director's vision is, how he wants to cover this, so that the lighting guy knows that, he wants to do a close-up from over here. Well, I have room in this room to get in a big sail over here put a light behind it, and the cameraman can figure out, I can lay dolly track this far, and we need to have dolly track sections that are only 6 feet because 12-footers won't fit in the room. So it's very helpful in laying out a scene and pre-visualizing a scene, if the director, a lot of times the director would draw their own storyboards if they're artistic, so that the rest of the crew knows what the director or the creative person is going for. And that way the art department doesn't have to build that fourth wall if we know we're never going to turn around and shoot a reverse in that direction. So it's very helpful in saving money and at the budgetary stage and then before production starts, if you know what you have to build and what you don't have to build, and what extras you have to hire for the background, etc. So it's very helpful along those lines to create that information to distribute among all the creatives.
As long as you're willing to follow the rules there. I mean, there's been times when directors are on, let's say a pirate ship, and they decide they want to shoot from the other side of the ship. It's, they want to reverse the entire shot, and then, that's another day. Fortunately,
you got to turn the ship around because the land is there's the dock over there.
Okay. Anyway, next question.
Via the QR code, Kent Kowalski from Madison, Ohio asks, is there any mobile app for Davinci Resolve? I would jump over to the new app and get rid of CapCut on my phone. Thanks.
Go ahead, Bill.
Well, it depends on where you want to go and what kind of work you want to do in the future, Kent. All software, by its very nature, are systems of constraint and permissions. What the designer of that software builds in is what they, the team, or the individual, if it's an individual creation, feel that most editors will need most of the time to get their jobs done. I have found over the course of my pretty long career at this point that sometimes being constrained into a system gives you more possibilities if what you're seeking is a seat in somebody's operation that gives you a job and sustains your life for a period of time. It's why back in the old days that the editors who wanted to work in Hollywood all needed to learn Avid. It was what was used there, and if you wanted to get a seat at that table, you needed to know that software. We're in a different era now. And I think the main difference is that now each individual editor can afford their own tools and decide what way they want to go. And that means you have to decide, if you pick one piece of software, will its constraints match where you want to go? All of the major software programs, as opposed to things like CapCut, which is a fine program for exactly what it's designed to do, but they'll all give you many more possibilities. The question this is just my thinking, I want to know whether the possibilities that this software allows resonates with the kind of editor I want to be. And I think nobody mistakes that I'm a Final Cut editor because I like the possibilities it gives me. It's been surprising to me that I'm able to do not just my video work, but my audio work and my graphic work and photo work and stuff like that. But it resonates with me. It will not for a different editor. So my suggestion for you, Kent, is to try at least the big 3 step-up editors. Try Davinci Resolve. Try Premiere world, try the Final Cut world, and any other worlds that you think are interesting, and hop onto those forums and talk to the people there and see if you can figure out what kind of people they are. How do they think? Are they seat type editors, or do they want to just break loose and go creative? And ask them questions about those things and find a tool that fits. Because once you get into the system, being really good means focusing on that system rather than trying to be a jack of all trades. That's my 2 cents.
To answer the question specifically, there's no Resolve on the phone, but you can get it on the iPad. The CapCut is made by ByteDance. You just want to keep that in mind. That it's that it is. If you want all the little features that everybody's using on TikTok right now, then you kind of need CapCut to do that. But I wouldn't put it on a phone that I use. Like, if you have an older phone, like the last generation or whatever, that's where you put CapCut and you take off everything else. And, it is, I think there's a lot of trust issues that people have with ByteDance right now. And so I think that I don't have CapCut on my phone, and I don't think I'd put it on. I think what killed it for me is I went to install it and then it said, I need to see all your photos. And I was like, and it didn't give me like a partial or whatever option. And I was like, okay, no, thank you. And so, and so I think that, and we should not underestimate the threat from China as Americans. It is a threat. It is a threat. And we should be careful about the software we put on our computers. Go ahead, Mark.
So there are clients that have sent us letters that say, do not bring any phones that have ever had TikTok on them to our site.
Yeah. So I do have TikTok. I just want to say I don't. The CapCut is because it's asking for things that are there. But yeah, it's so we should think about that. Next question.
Chuck Hodges from Tuolumne, California, via the QR code says, didn't really get an answer to this general info question, so asking again. We can now buy disguised render engines for $50 US each, or VX for $3,500. Should we bother, and what could we do with these things?
You have to tell us what you're trying to do. Disguise does a lot of different things. So what do you want to do with Disguise? It does virtual, it does pre-visualization, it does obviously a lot of, here's the site. And the problem is that I can't go through their site and try to figure out what you're trying to do, because their site is, it's got lots of visuals and very little detail. So it's, I don't know where the $50 sale that you're talking about is. I don't know how to get to a lot of things on their site. So I find their site to be a bit frustrating. It's a great piece of software, but the site is heavy on lots of big images. But in general, if you're looking for, if you're in the I want to render virtual worlds against an LED wall or create those types of things, and you're looking at Disguise, you're looking at Unreal Engine, you're looking at a couple other tools that are out there to do that. I don't know where I didn't see any place that it said rendering engines are being sold for $50 or even what the price is for VX. But you have to tell us specifically what you want. Are you trying to build a virtual world? Are you trying to run an LED wall? Are you trying to, what are you trying to do with it? And then we can probably have a better idea of how to answer that. Next question.
Zach Stahlsmith from Chautauqua, New York wants to know, can you use a Streamdeck pedal with Bitfocus Companion?
I don't have a specific answer for that. Because I have not. I have a Streamdeck panel, but I've not tried to connect it to Bitfocus Companion. I see no reason why you couldn't tie it together. Tie the foot pedal to Bitfocus, because it's just an input that can be mapped to. You should be able to map those two together. But I've never tried that myself, even though I have both of those things on my computers in this room. I just haven't tried to do it. I don't find. I'll just say that I don't find that the pedal is very compelling. I used it for a while, and it mostly bothers me. And I find there's two things. One is it makes the muscles in the front of my leg sore if I use it for a whole show, and it makes a little sound that bothers me. So David Brady says yes. So there you go. Yes, you can do it. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael wants to know, what brands do you prefer for office or studio chairs? Ever tried Recaro chairs?
Go ahead, Mark.
So if you They're very expensive, but Herman Miller makes some chairs like the Aerons that we've had for 20 years. So if you want to make a long investment, you can also find these chairs secondhand that are almost never been used because a lot of the big law firms and the big offices buy them, and then they move or downsize, and they have all these chairs that haven't been used. So you can find them secondhand, barely used, for a lot less money. But Aeron chairs will last you 20 years.
I got Bill.
What Mark said is exactly right. I'm on the Steelcase side. I'm sitting in a Steelcase Leap that I've had for literally 35 years. I've had to replace one arm because the fabric split on it, and I've had to change the casters for different floors. But other than that, it's been solid. So, it's a buy once, cry once kind of thing. If you spend a lot of time in a chair, buying anything less than a really strong fit supportive chair for you is a bad investment because if you start getting fatigued and you can't finish your work and you're on deadline, it's a terrible slog. So yeah, buy once, cry once.
Go TJ.
I'll echo Mark's recommendation for Herman Miller Aeron chairs. I have 3 of them. One of them I have had 22 years now, and it literally looks brand new, except for a slight shininess on the arm pads where my elbows rub. You couldn't tell it from a new chair.
Go ahead, Courtney.
For years, I had a Herman Miller Eames chair, and I thought, well, I wore it out. The plywood finally split. It's one of those formed plywood chairs. It's a lounge chair and has an ottoman, but it leans you back at a very comfortable level, and I have a back that needs to take the weight off of my spine on the bottom of the spine. And so I thought, I'll just go online and see if I can find one, and they're $6,000 now. And problem with them. And so for a chair, I looked at this Recaro, and they seem to have a short seat and a very high back on them, at least the ones that I found with that brand for those type of chairs. They seem to have a back that goes all the way up above your head practically. It depends on how tall you are. But it's going to get in the shot if you appear on camera. It may be comfortable for gaming. It looks kind of like a gaming chair. And they don't seem, I'm not sure how expensive they are, but you can go anywhere from, like I said, the $6,000 Herman Millers. The Aerons are a lot cheaper than, there's the Eames lounge chair. They do make knockoffs, though, you can get for around $1,000 that are great, that look almost identical to the actual Herman Miller chair. So, but I've been using Lazy Boys. Avoid anything that says bonded leather. So if it says, leather, but it says bonded leather instead of cowhide leather, or instead of full leather, don't get it, because the bonded leather is like a tissue paper thin coating of cow cells that is laid over canvas, and it rots and starts flaking off after about a year. So avoid anything like that.
Yeah, Mickey said that Herman Miller and Steelcase on Flexi Spot for on the low end for some value there. David Brady says he uses a Herman Miller Sail, Sayl, I don't get anything that's going to go past my shoulders, so I'm using a Herman Miller Mira is what I'm sitting on right now, and I've been using that, and I did it mostly because I went through a couple chairs at the beginning of office hours. And really needed to find something else. I had trouble with my back when I got up, and just decided to go ahead and spend money on my chair, and it has made a huge difference. So the Mira is the one that I'm the happiest with. Next question.
Jeff Veely from Henderson, Texas says, I'm considering replacing my ATEM and RodeCaster Pro with a RodeCaster Video to streamline my AV setup. I'm adding 2 Ultimattes to the pipeline. What should I consider before making the switch?
Go ahead, Mark.
So the one thing you might want to consider is that the ATEM treats the Ultimatte as an extension. So you'll be able to, reach out to it easier than you will be with the RodeCaster.
Go ahead, Mark. Oh, sorry. Something happened with the question. It jumped ahead. Next.
Mark Giuliani from Washington, D.C. says, I'm planning on getting a family member a new Mac Mini. Can we share our Apple Photos library from a Promise Pegasus connected to another Mac on the same network?
I go with CJ.
You definitely can. If you've got the Promise Pegasus connected to the other Mac, you would need to go into your settings and into file sharing and then make that volume available on the network. While you could have both Macs connect to the same Photos library, I wouldn't recommend them connecting to the Photos library at the same time or with different versions. If there's any sort of version mismatch between Photos on the new Mac Mini and Photos on your primary Mac, that could cause the library to have some conflicts or get out of sync. And I don't believe that it supports two Macs accessing the same Photos library file simultaneously. So as long as those things aren't conflicts for you, you should be all good to go.
You're definitely not using it the way Apple designed it. So, I mean, just so you know, I would not have two computers sharing the same library. I think even if it lets you do that, it'll junk the whole library up. It will not work. Bad things will happen. The way a Mac is designed, or the way all the devices are designed, is they all have their own library, and they all talk to that account's set of libraries. And it's all designed around each person having their own version of their life. And then they share the albums that they want to share. But if they want to share something with you and put things in for you to see it, that's fine. But having everybody see everybody's pictures is not the way Apple designed that process. It's all designed. It's very individual, and so and Apple's designed around that. And so it's designed, if you want to have a place where you're sharing things, you put them into an album that all of you are sharing. But what Apple's designed around is that every picture you take does not end up on everybody else's library. It ends up on all of your libraries on every Apple device that you have. But it's designed to give you a layer of privacy. And so it's designed for you to be, and you got to be careful. I mean, in the old days, iPhoto would share, you could have like a public folder that it would just show up on other people's photos, and that took a little while for them to turn it off. I was in Vegas one time, and one popped up, and I opened it up. It was hair raising. Anyway, I opened it up. I was like, oh, I got to shut that, and I didn't even know how it ended up. And I was like, how did this end up on my computer? And I realized it was just someone's shared folder in a hotel room next to me. Anyway, it's just so be careful. I think they got rid of that, but you still have to. You can still share things with family members, albums, but you don't want to. You don't want to share the whole volume. Go ahead, Mark.
So I guess if we wanted to share all those pictures on our phones, we would create an album and share that album into a group that's the family.
Yeah, but you wouldn't want to share. I mean, I don't know how you use photos. I mean, if you want to, if you want to share a select, if you want to have the family shots, you create an album and everybody shares it, assuming everybody's got an iPhone. Everyone's on a Mac or Mac based. You would share that. You can share that library with. You can share it out as a shared album, and then everybody can put stuff into it. Yeah. Go ahead, CJ.
And in iOS 16, they did introduce the capability of expanding beyond just a shared iCloud photo album to a whole shared iCloud library. So there's a family share library and your regular library that are two separate things. That allows you to do a little bit more than just the iCloud, but that's just the iCloud shared albums. But that is the Apple sanctioned way to do a shared library.
Next question.
John Foltz from Sealands Grove, Pennsylvania says, my Bluetooth MX Anywhere mouse recently started acting up. The movement across the screen isn't smooth, and sometimes it sticks on a screen location. It's fully charged, and I don't have many other Bluetooth devices on the computer. Ideas?
Go ahead, Courtney.
Well, Bluetooth is at 2.4 gigahertz, which is the frequency that is most interfered with in any home. And, your Wi-Fi is on 2.4, and your Internet of Things are on 2.4, and your microwave is on 2.4. And I've had this problem with other people that have erratic mouse connections. And if it's using I'm not sure if the MX Anywhere uses a dongle or if it just uses the built-in Bluetooth in your computer. I found that the only way to solve these problems a lot of time is to use a dongle-based Bluetooth mouse and move the Bluetooth dongle to an extension and put it within about a foot of that mouse. And that will give it, reduces the signal-to-noise ratio and reduces the error rate, which is what causes the stuttering mouse movement or it freezing because those mouse signals are not getting through because something is, it's competing with something else on that frequency, even though you may not have Bluetooth on that into your computer. Also, and depends on what kind of computer you have. A lot of times the Bluetooth antennas are an afterthought, and they have to find a place on the computer that isn't metal to put those antennas on if they're not external. So like on the new Mac Minis that are a big aluminum block, they're underneath in the plastic foot. And so if that foot is away from you, it's not line of sight, it's going to, the metal's going to knock out a lot of that signal. Usually it makes it through okay. But if you've got any contention, anything else on 2.4 gigahertz can create that problem. And what I did for a friend of mine that had an issue like this, I got him a separate USB Bluetooth, high power Bluetooth dongle that has an antenna on it. And then you can mount that anywhere that has a good line of sight to your mouse. And it has usually 2 to 3 times the power output of a standard Bluetooth transmitter. And that solved his problem.
Go, Bill.
I famously haven't touched a mouse in about 10 years now, but when I had them, just make sure, somebody I think mentioned, Tim, in the comments, that make sure it's clean. Sometimes you just get gunk on the ball or the little rollers inside of there. I don't know what this mouse uses. This maybe has an optical thing, but if it gets any schmutz in there.
Don't have rollers and balls on them anymore.
Well, went in the old days, yeah, that was a problem. You get a little gunk on there, and all of a sudden it started skipping things. So
like mine, I still have a ball. I mean, I have a trackball. Like Bill, I don't think I have the same one. I keep on breaking that one. But these definitely have rollers still on them. I use RF, so this only has to go like 3 feet with a little RF. It's not Bluetooth. It can switch to Bluetooth, but I find it to be unstable. So I use the RF, and it also needed to go into my. It needs to go into my KVM because this is my trackball for all 8 computers. So next question.
Paul Walhus from Austin, Texas says, I want to do underwater photography with audio on my iPhone 15 Pro Max. What options do I have other than a Ziploc bag?
Go ahead, CJ.
The audio is not going to sound great underwater. There's a lot of, but do put a case on it if you're going to be down there for any appreciable amount of time. I know since the iPhone 7 they have been IP rated for water resistance, but unless that phone is in perfect pristine condition, the seals might still let water in. So you're going to have to get some sort of protection on there.
You got Bill.
Yeah, if you search iPhone underwater housing, you will find the official ones that are designed to make them completely waterproof for diving deep. But also understand, as CJ mentioned, audio is going to be a big issue. So is lighting. If you go below 6 to 10 feet and you get down there, suddenly the reds start getting leached out as the sunlight goes through that, and you're going to get really pretty poor color rendition. Divers have always fought this, and so some sort of lighting rig that you can add light if you're going down that far to be able to get nice-looking shots is pretty much a requirement.
And David Brady suggested this one here. This is the Dive Volk C-Touch 4 Max underwater housing compatible with the iPhone and Android. So it's an more open window rather than something that fits specifically, and up to 60 meters, I think. So it goes pretty far. But under small amount of water, you can put it under there. I've accidentally done that with my phone. Next question.
Tony Mobley in Noonan says, panel, is the pro version of Open Ai Sora worth the $200 monthly cost? Is there something as good at a lower price?
We're all looking at whether Google's VO, which we don't have access to, most of us don't have access to yet, it looks like it's more accurate than Sora. Sora looks really impressive, but at $200, I'd have to think about it for a while. so we'll see. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
I don't think it depends on how much you're going to use it. I think you can actually get it on the $20, but you get a really limited number of credits that let you do maybe 1 or 2 videos a day. So that's not great. And like he said, the Veo, which I've seen go online and look at comparisons between Veo, the new VEO, the new Google text to video generator, and it blows Sora out of the water. It's much more accurate. It looks clean and beautiful, but like Alex says, you can sign up, get on the wait list, but we don't know when it's going to be released. I'm sure they're trying to figure out how to build in all the guardrails right now, so they've only sent it out to a lot of YouTube influencers who are doing comparisons side by side to Sora, and we don't know what the cost is going to be on it when it comes out, so it may be just as expensive. We don't know.
If you like office hours and you like what we're doing here, you can support us in a couple ways. Of course, subscribe to the channel. It helps us, when we're talking to other people mostly. You can also donate. You can go to officehours.global/donate, or you can volunteer at officehours.global/volunteer and help this large community keep moving forward. Next question.
Brian Taylor in Washington, D.C. says, while watching Little House on the Prairie, I wondered how long before the Apple Vision Pro allows us to immerse ourselves in classic TV programs.
Go ahead, CJ.
I've watched some of the immersive stuff in the Vision Pro. I've also watched some older films and TV shows. I actually, I like taking the older TV show and making it, movie theater sized and almost all but filling your whole field of view. It feels pretty immersive. I don't know if I necessarily would want it to try and have it, wrap around me. That could be cool for a second, but it would probably get old. I was watching something that was like from the 50s or 60s. It was like Happy Holidays from Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra on the Vision Pro the other day. And it was really cool because it's like, oh my gosh, they're life-sized in my living room. It's a joy.
Good, Bill.
Because I'm a photo aficionado, I always pay attention to some of the Photoshop battles and things like that. And one of the recent trends is people taking historic photos, not only cleaning them up, but then 3D sizing them. Is that even a term? Extruding into 3D space, flat work from before. There is an incredible amount of research going into that. Now, it's at still photo level now, but eventually you can kind of project that they will be doing that with video. The question for me is the intellectual property involved, and is there a big enough market for a show like Little House on the Prairie, which was wonderful in its day, but there's been a lot of production advancements since those old shows were shot. And will there be something like TV Land in 3D that'll generate enough interest and enough economic weight to make this something that people will do? Because it will be computationally pretty intense to do a whole half-hour sitcom in 3D.
Go, Courtney.
Yeah, it depends on the vintage of the television program. The ones that were shot on film can then be transferred at high resolution, and then they can be run through an AI-assisted process now that can dimensionalize them, that can separate characters from the background, let's say, but it's a painstaking process. And about 4 or 5 years ago, almost all theatrically released features that when 3D was popular because the exhibitors found that they could charge $3 more per ticket, they would run all their flat shot, theatrical features through the conversion process to convert it to 3D. But it has that kind of, cards placed on a background flat thing. It kind of makes things look flat. And so for Apple TV, where you can kind of move your head around and look around to other sides of the character, it's not going to work for that, because then it'll reveal the problems of that conversion process. And those particular episodes of television shows that were shot or finished in video, they don't have the original. The cut was never done. There's that, like Star Trek Next Generation, all the visual effects were done at 640 by 480 in video. So they don't exist on film, so they can't make high resolution versions of that. But with the current method of AI upresing, maybe they can use the expense to go back and redo all the visual effects. But a lot of those that are visual effects done in that period of time of transition between standard def and high def, you're probably not going to see those show up.
I think it's actually, I could see AI at some point being able to analyze an entire show, look at all the scenes, all the different angles, and just build something that was something you could walk through while the scene is running. That seems like a pretty doable thing. Like, it just sees all the characters from different angles. It sees all those scenes sets from different angles. It slowly builds up a library and then just does the scene in the location. What's funny is it doesn't really work because, of course, the locations don't work, so it would have to know how to segment scenes because, things aren't where they should be a lot of times. And so it would have to kind of figure that out. But I don't think I'd want to watch a whole movie that way, but I do think that I'd want to watch scenes that way. It'd be kind of cool to see. And I think what's more likely to happen, obviously much sooner than later, is that we're going to see Apple and others, as soon as this Blackmagic camera comes out, I guarantee people are going to shoot behind the scenes with it. So what you really want is just to see them shooting it. It'd be kind of cool to, like in Silo or something like that, or even do a scene. Like you can, especially when you have a single camera, you could do the scene for both cameras at the same time, or do it once and then do it again, or take a different take with it, or something like that, where you have the immersive experience of that scene. You'd have to dress the set a little bit wider than you normally would for a regular camera, but it'd be interesting. Next question.
David Brady in New York City says, the recording made with NDI Studio Monitor uses a codec that nothing recognizes. What's the easiest and best way to transcode to a usable format? Guy Cochran says, David Brady, there's a 3-hour-old update. It's only been 3 hours. Yeah, so which improves integration with Premiere. It recognizes the Speed HQ codec. Make sure to reinstall NDI tools if Adobe Premiere is installed after. Highly recommended. We talked about this last night in Extra Hours. The Tools on Air just in for NDI records for the Mac at $99. ProRes, HEVC, H.264, all on FCP, Resolve, et cetera. So I think that's fairly new. The just in from Tools on Air has an NDI record only for the Mac. That doesn't require any of the hardware or anything else, and they'll probably give you something that's more what you want. Next question. Via the QR code, Matt Large in London wants to know, is the new immersive camera from Blackmagic the first lens they've shipped? Do you think they worked with someone else on that component?
Yes. They did work with somebody else. I have no idea who it is, but I'm sure that they didn't make it in-house. That's grinding lenses is a thing. So I don't know who it was, but it wasn't them. that's that. I'm going to be bold and just say that that's my guess. Next question.
Henry Ramos from Yonkers, New York says, just bought a new Asus PC monitor. No matter what I do in Windows display settings, it defaults as my main monitor for opening apps and the volume and taskbar controls. How do I fix?
Go ahead, Mark.
So I've experienced this quite a bit. There should be a multiple monitors setting in the Windows settings that you can go to and tell Windows, hey, this monitor is the primary monitor, the main monitor. Where I've experienced this that becomes frustrating is when you have an alternative graphics cards like an NVIDIA graphics card where they want to use their own software to control the monitors. And I've witnessed several fights between Microsoft and NVIDIA trying to control the monitors, and it's just frustrating.
Next question.
Ronnie Hofse from Tromsø, Norway says, small field monitors, table stands or floor stands?
Go ahead, Bill.
For me, both. I have actually floor stands on top of my desk because I wanted to get my near fields up to the level of my main monitor so clients can see the sound, can see the picture and get the sound field coming out of that. The answer to me is install it and test. Buy the speakers, stack them on poles or books or whatever you need to get them in various positions and see what they sound like. All that matters is really when you're using them in real life that you're getting the sound field, the clarity, the bass response, the lack of reflections, whatever it is you're going for to try to get good sound out of them, you get them in that position, you go, okay, that's the sweet spot, and then you buy whatever it takes to get them to that sweet spot.
Mickey said Genelec 8030 or other 30 series, pairing them with a sub with base management is necessary for critical monitoring to do their low-end response and size. Floor stands, whenever possible, to decouple from the residence of the desk, and I think I almost exclusively use floor stands for anything that matters to me. Next question.
Mike Beardmore from Bedford, UK. Apparently, the UK has lots of open jobs for creative trades. How would you inspire students to consider apprenticeship as electrician, carpenter, etc.? Harry Potter had 1,400 off-camera roll credits.
School should be, teaching kids how to do a lot of those things. I think that unfortunately, one of the biggest things that we took away from school, we kind of decided we're going to spend all the time teaching kids things that they're going to forget by the end of the year mostly, and take away the things that might actually be useful for a lifetime, like wood shop and metal shop. I still use things I learned in metal shop and wood shop at this age, and I can't remember almost anything I learned in class. So I think that we've gone into this theoretical world that is I'm as a parent right now watching my kids learn things that I just know that they'll not know, they won't remember at the end of the year, let alone, they're going to learn it long enough to figure out the test. And so we're just building, I don't know, for me as a frustrated parent, I just feel like we're teaching people a lot. We're literally just wasting their time. Like we're just wasting kids' times, and what is so wrong with that is that it is the most valuable learning time of their entire life, where they have time, they have the most flexibility, the most plasticity in their brain, and we just burn it up in the atmosphere by teaching them a bunch of stuff that they don't care about. It is the most insane thing I've ever seen. The more I get closer to the education system, and now that I'm a parent and a customer, so I'm just more angry than I was before. It didn't make it better, and so it's really important. Like I'm going to start working with the school that my kids are in to teach the kids how to do. I said I'll bring cameras, and no one's shooting all their plays and everything else. And I was like, I can teach the kids how to do all of this stuff. And so I'm just going to bring cameras and teach them how to do it. But that's going to be a skill set that they have, but what they should be doing is when I was growing up, the wood shop was helping building all the set pieces and doing all the other stuff. We were, part of that program. And I just feel like the reason you don't get this is because they don't see it in school. They don't experience it. And it's insane. It's insane. Go ahead, Courtney.
So if you're looking at something in the entertainment industry or crafts that are involved with production, look into the union's internship programs because then you can intern on something exciting like a movie production where they have those 1,400 electricians and, those big costume dramas. They're using a lot more CGI that's displacing a lot of craftsmen these days, but they used to and still sometimes do have to produce, thousands of hand props or hundreds of hand props, or even just 4 or 5. If you apprentice someone in a craft like carpentry, where that particular, because in case AI replaces all those creative things, carpentry is still useful to produce furniture with or something. Find a craft that's interesting, can be applied to the entertainment business, but if it disappears because of AI taking your job, you have some other aspect to use that skill obtained in that creative process. So, things like carpentry prop creation, any of those type of things. Look for an internship program where you can get in even on a union show if you're not a member of the union and apprentice. You may not get paid very much, but you'll learn a great deal.
Yeah, to go back to the question of how do we inspire students to do this, it's that we should have them building stuff from day one. Building stuff builds a whole bunch of pipelines in someone's mind, that makes you understand how things work and allows you to think and allows you to do other things. And kids we could spend way more time. There's about half of their curriculum that we could just throw away because they're never going to use it. And then just fill it with building things and cooking things and making things and growing things, because people underestimate that. Like, well, you can't get a job doing that. You can, and it may be the only jobs left. In 10 years. And so I think that's all the stuff that they're taking in school is probably the stuff that's going to get replaced by AI. So I think that's it. As someone who grew up building lots of things, in school, outside of school, on a farm, on my own, it is so powerful. And we need to be thinking about how we drive our education systems towards creation, creation. And that can be still, keynotes and video and everything else, but it should also include things that we do with our hands. And from the time kids get into school, they do a little bit of that. And then they're like, okay, we're going to stop doing that. We're just going to write things down and everything else. And that is insanity. Like it's just, and I think that's part of why people get depressed is because they can't actually do anything, and I think that it's, I find a lot of value in making things and growing things and building things. And so I think that, we have to think about, when we think about how do we inspire kids, is getting people back to the basics of creation and making things with their hands and with their minds and with everything else, and not being caught up in just building up a bunch of theoretical knowledge they'll never use. If you have questions, we didn't get to all the questions. If you have questions, we're at the end of the show, but you can go to askofficehours.global every anytime between the shows. So you can go ask officehours.global and just ask your questions there. You can, of course, go into Makana, but this is a way to do it without having to go into anything. You just go up to that. If you save that on your phone or whatever, when a question pops into your head, you can just go, I wonder about that. And so we have people who even are in Makana that use the QR code because it's just easier. So ask officehours.global. You can ask that any time of the day, 24/7, and we'll file it in. Just make sure that it's clear. Try not to be cute with the ones on the QR code because we'll just reject them because we don't understand what you mean. So if you do something that's kind of poetic or whatever, most likely it won't get through. But if you just ask a straight ahead question, we're always looking forward to them. I want to thank everybody for asking so many questions. If we didn't get to your question, it was a QR code. We'll bring it back in the next day. If we didn't get to your question, it was in Makana, then it'll go into your notes and you can bring it back the next day if you want to. But really, thank you for all the questions. We still had 10 or 15 that were still left when we got to the end. That's great work and we started off with like 3. So I was like, oh, this is going to be a short show. And then it didn't turn out that way because all of you have been so productive as producers. So keep on asking those questions, keep on voting on those questions so that we know which ones you want to actually have us answer. And thanks, of course, to the panel. Great panel today. And I was expecting like one person. Like we get into these holiday things, and everyone's busy. So we're still going to be here tomorrow on Christmas. Hopefully, some of our panelists will be here with me. Otherwise, it'll be Ask Alex instead of Ask Office Hours. But I think that I know Cindy's going to be here reading, and I'll be here, and so hopefully we'll see a couple other folks here for Christmas morning. But thank you so much. We can't do this without you. And thanks to the incredible team on the back end that again, on Christmas, on Thanksgiving, on all the holidays, are still making sure that this show actually happens. We really appreciate all of you making it possible. Today, if we had done this in person, we would have traveled 34,000 miles. That's 54,000 kilometers, and that is 267 million bananas for scale. All right, let's jump into after hours. I almost said 1,000. 267,000 bananas for scale. Huge bananas. Very giant bananas falling from the sky. I got to use up all today is my day that I run out of. Mid-journey day? It's my mid-journey update day. So what I do is I go up and I go, how many credits do I have left? And I just turn it on turbo and just go,
it's a perfect Santa
all your
Claus
Christmas
graphic day.
Unique Christmas cards for every person you know.
I do. So I have Santa. So what I do is I've got to finish them. I have a Santa Claus picture for most of my family. I don't do it for everyone, but for my family, I have a Santa Claus picture of Santa Claus doing something that they like. Like my brother, it's always like Santa playing golf. I have one now. Santa's like looking down on a green that's like in the Arctic, but it's just green, like a little green area. And then I send each one of them something that